It all unfolded in an instant, so quickly that Monica Carter barely had the chance to catch her breath. 1 second she was checking out a bracelet for her niece, and the next, she was being called a thief. Voices cut sharp through the air, rough hands grabbed her, and then came the strike. Officer David Miller shoved her into the glass wall, the chill of it pressing against her cheek as steel cuffs locked tight around her wrists. The entire boutique went silent. To the crowd watching, she looked like just another black woman cornered and shamed in a busy mall. To Miller, she was nothing more than a name to pad his record, another arrest to boost his sense of power. But what none of them realized, not the officer, not the guards, not even the manager who accused her, was that the woman they just handcuffed wasn't some random shopper. They had laid their hands on Captain Monica Carter. 20 years in law enforcement, a woman who carried more authority in her badge than all of them put together. And soon enough, the cost of that mistake would hit harder than any of them expected. Above them, the glass ceiling of Chicago Galleria Mall caught the afternoon sunlight, scattering it in streaks across the polished marble floor. Weekend chatter bounced through the wide hallways as shoppers wandered in and out of stores. Among the crowd walked Monica, her purse tucked close at her side, her stride steady and purposeful. To anyone glancing her way, she looked like any other customer, but to two men watching from the mezzanine, she looked like a target. Security guards Brandon Hayes and Kyle Turner exchanged a look. Brandon, tall and broad-shouldered, already had his hand at his radio. Kyle followed suit, though his hesitation showed in the way his eyes flicked toward Monica with unease. The two of them began to shadow her through the crowd, steps calculated, their presence impossible to miss by anyone with trained instincts. Monica didn't even need to turn her head, 20 years on the job had taught her how to sense when someone was tailing her. Today was supposed to be simple. She just wanted to buy a birthday present for her niece, Madison. After a week buried under case reports and long precinct meetings, this little shopping trip was supposed to feel normal, almost like a reset. She slowed her pace at a jewelry boutique where the glass displays sparkled with silver charms. In the reflection, she caught Brandon whispering into his radio, "Black female. Black purse. Black sweater. Keeping eyes on." Her jaw tightened. She had been shadowed before, written off by strangers before she even said a word. It wasn't new, but it still stung every time. Monica exhaled, determined not to let this ruin her day. Inside the boutique, the air smelled faintly of vanilla, soft jazz humming in the background. Behind the counter stood Sharon Brooks, the store manager, her smile thin and her eyes sharp the moment Monica walked in. "Can I help you?" Sharon's voice carried more warning than warmth. "Just browsing, thanks," Monica replied evenly, heading toward the bracelet display. But Sharon trailed her, her gaze glued to the purse at Monica's side as if it held something dangerous. Meanwhile, Brandon and Kyle hovered outside, pretending to study the mall directory. Their figures flickered in the mirrors around the boutique. "Everything here is locked up," Sharon announced loudly, her words more for the guards than for Monica. "Only staff can remove items." "I understand," Monica said calmly. "If I'd like to see something, I'll ask." Still, Sharon edged closer, suspicion radiating from every glance. "Have you ever stepped into a store and immediately felt the weight of eyes on you? Not because of anything you've done, but because of the color of your skin. Treated like a suspect before you've even touched a single thing. What would you do if every move you made was labeled suspicious, just because of how you look?" Monica tuned out the tension, focusing instead on the silver butterfly charm bracelet Madison had been hinting at for weeks. It sparkled under the lights, the perfect gift. If only the air in the room wasn't thick enough to choke on. She leaned closer to the glass, studying the delicate bracelet with its crystal-set butterfly wings that shimmered under the boutique lights. Monica pictured Madison's face lighting up when she opened it, the kind of joy that reminded her why family always came before the endless grind of precinct life. "I'd like to see that one," Monica said, pointing toward the display. Sharon froze for a second, her hand hovering over the keys before unlocking the case. Monica noticed the slight tremble in her fingers as she set the bracelet on the counter. The nerves had nothing to do with the jewelry, it was about Monica. "This is beautiful," Monica Carter said softly, already reaching for her wallet. But before she could finish the thought, Sharon Brooks's voice sliced through the calm like a knife. "Before we go any further, I need to check your bag." The entire boutique seemed to freeze in place. Even the soft jazz in the background felt like it disappeared under the weight of silence. Monica blinked, her body going rigid at the audacity of the demand. "Excuse me?" she asked, her tone steady, refusing to let her temper slip. "A piece of jewelry is missing," Sharon announced louder now, her gaze darting toward the entrance where Brandon Hayes and Kyle Turner stood like watchdogs. "I saw you slip something into your purse." Brandon stepped in immediately, his posture heavy with authority. "Ma'am, please cooperate. Empty your bag on the counter." His hand hovered near his radio like he was ready to turn this into a show. "That's a lie," Monica shot back, squaring her shoulders. "The only thing I've touched is the bracelet you just took out for me." "Last chance," Brandon pressed, inching closer. "Open the bag, or this gets difficult." Kyle shifted uneasily behind him, his discomfort clear, but he made no move to intervene. Monica felt the heat rising in her chest, but she kept her voice even and strong. "No. I won't let you dig through my personal belongings without probable cause. You're targeting me because of how I look, and it ends right here." Her refusal didn't slow them down, it only fueled their determination. Brandon lifted his radio and barked into it. "Code 10 at Lux and Lace Jewelry. Subject refusing to comply. Requesting immediate police backup." Outside the store, shoppers slowed to watch, some already pulling out their phones. The quiet humiliation Monica had endured for years was about to become a public spectacle. She kept her purse tight against her side, eyes locked on Brandon without a single flinch. "You're making a very serious mistake," she warned firmly, just as the sound of heavy footsteps echoed closer. Backup had arrived. Within moments, the boutique doors swung wide open, and in walked Officer David Miller, his badge flashing under the fluorescent lights. His entrance wasn't about protecting anyone, it was about putting on a performance, and he relished every second of it. The crowd outside leaned in, phones raised high to capture the drama. "What's the issue here?" Miller boomed, his voice filling the room before his eyes landed squarely on Monica. His hand rested casually on his holstered weapon, the gesture slow and deliberate, designed to intimidate. "She won't let us check her bag," Sharon blurted, practically running toward him. "A bracelet went missing." Miller cut her off with a smirk. "Always the same story, isn't it?" His stare burned into Monica, dripping with both disdain and anticipation. Monica straightened her back, her voice calm but unshakable. "Officer, this is a misunderstanding. All you need to do is check the cameras." Her words had barely left her lips before Miller grabbed her shoulder and slammed her against the glass wall of the boutique. The display cases rattled from the impact, and a gasp rippled through the onlookers. Cold glass pressed into her cheek as Miller leaned in, his voice low and venomous. "Don't tell me how to do my job. Hands behind your back. Now. This is excessive force." Monica shouted, raising her voice so every phone in the room caught it. Rage burned in her chest, but her tone stayed sharp and controlled. "I have rights, and you are violating them." "Rights?" Miller laughed harshly. He yanked her arms behind her, snapping cold steel cuffs around her wrists, far too tight. "You've got the right to stay quiet while I tack resisting arrest onto your charges." Gasps and whispers filled the boutique. Some shoppers cried out that it wasn't right, others muttered in disbelief. But still, no one stepped forward. Instead, dozens of phones documented every humiliating second. Miller spun Monica around and shoved her toward the mall corridor. The glass doors opened to a sea of shoppers who froze mid-step, eyes wide as they watched the scene play out. Phones rose higher, the crowd buzzing with outrage. "You're making a scene out of nothing," Miller shouted theatrically, his voice booming as if he were performing for an audience. "You could have just cooperated." Monica's wrists throbbed from the cuffs, but she lifted her chin, her voice steady and unbroken. "Before you take another step, officer, there's something you should know." "Save it for booking," he sneered. Her voice rang out, echoing across the mall. "I am Captain Monica Carter of the 15th Precinct. My badge is in my pocket. You are arresting a police captain." The crowd erupted in gasps and murmurs. Miller faltered, hesitation flashing across his face even as he barked, "Fake badge, add another charge." But the tide was already turning, and the heavy footsteps approaching signaled that someone new was about to enter the scene. The air inside Chicago Galleria Mall grew thick with tension as the crowd packed tighter near the exit. Dozens of phones were raised like spotlights, all focused on Officer David Miller gripping Monica Carter by the arm. He tried to hold on to his swagger, but the rising murmur of voices was cutting through fast. "She said she's a captain. Check her badge. This isn't right." Miller barked louder, trying to drown out the doubt, but the chant was catching momentum. Then the sound that shifted everything echoed across the marble, measured, heavy footsteps. The crowd parted instinctively as another figure emerged. It turned out Miller wasn't the only one who'd responded to that call. Another unit had picked it up. And now, pushing calmly through the sea of shoppers came Sergeant Mark Reynolds, his broad frame commanding space without a word. He didn't rush, he didn't need to. His presence alone drew the noise down to a hush. The years had carved lines into his face, but his voice carried the steady authority of a man who'd seen it all. Reynolds had worked alongside Monica for years. He knew her reputation, her spotless record, her integrity. Seeing her cuffed made his expression harden like stone. He stopped just a few feet away, his voice rolling across the corridor. "Officer Miller, want to explain why you've got a captain in restraints?" The crowd gasped. Miller froze. "She's lying," he snapped, though his voice cracked. "Claimed to be a captain to avoid arrest. I was responding to a theft complaint." Reynolds cut him off, sharp as steel. "That woman is Captain Monica Carter. Your commanding officer's commanding officer. And the badge in her pocket? It's real. You'd have known that if you'd bothered to check before slamming her against a wall in front of half this city." The corridor held its breath, then erupted in gasps and shouts. "She's a captain," someone yelled. "They arrested a captain for shopping." The chants built louder, outrage spreading like wildfire. Miller's face turned crimson. He opened his mouth, but Reynolds stepped closer, his words cutting like a blade. "Remove those cuffs. Now." Miller's hands shook as he fumbled with the keys. The cuffs clicked open, leaving raw red marks etched around Monica's wrists. She rubbed them slowly, locking eyes with him, her voice low but sharp enough to cut. "You've just proven everything I've been fighting against: intimidation, abuse, racial profiling, right here for everyone to see." The crowd roared in agreement. Phones zoomed in on Miller's pale face, on Monica's wrists, on the humiliation of a man who thought his power was untouchable. Sharon Brooks, the boutique manager, tried to slip back into her store unnoticed, but voices rose against her too. "You set this up. We saw you." Brandon Hayes and Kyle Turner, who had stood so puffed up earlier, now looked stiff and silent as the jeers hit them full force. Through the chaos, Lauren Mitchell, the mall's PR director, hurried forward, her professional mask cracking under pressure. "Captain Carter, on behalf of Chicago Galleria Mall, we sincerely apologize." Monica turned, her voice slicing through the noise. "Apologies won't erase what happened here. Make sure every second of this footage is preserved. This isn't ending quietly." Miller's face drained of color. The chants from the shoppers only grew louder. "Fire him! Fire him!" Phones stayed locked on him, ensuring there was no escape from accountability. Within hours, the fallout was brutal. Officer David Miller was suspended without pay and placed under investigation. Guards Brandon Hayes and Kyle Turner were fired immediately for racial profiling. Sharon Brooks lost her job for targeting customers based on race. The management of Chicago Galleria Mall faced citywide backlash, their security contracts frozen pending review. What was supposed to humiliate Monica instead exposed an entire system built on arrogance and bias. And as chance of justice rattled through the air, Captain Carter stood tall, vindicated, unbroken, and stronger than ever.